He was there one moment and gone the next. 4-year-old Caleb had been napping inside the family's tent, tucked in after a long morning of exploring the Montana wilderness. His parents stepped just a few feet away to cook lunch. A pot boiled, a sibling called out, and in that brief, ordinary moment, he disappeared. The forest swallowed him whole. The scream came fast, sharp, ragged, panicked. "Caleb!" His mother's voice cracked the quiet stillness. Within minutes, every ranger in the area was radioed. Search parties were assembled, helicopters dispatched. But the dense wilderness offered no trail, no sound. Only the eerie silence of trees and a growing sense of dread. The hours crawled. Dogs couldn't pick up a strong scent. The sun dipped behind the clouds and shadows grew long. What began as hopeful coordination slowly turned frantic. The boy wasn't dressed for cold. He had no food, no shoes. And now nightfall loomed. Wolves were known to roam this stretch of forest, bears too. A chopper team flying grid patterns over the North Ridge spotted movement just before dusk. "I've got something in the clearing. Small figure, human size." The pilot pulled lower. Cameras zoomed. On screen, a grainy figure appeared in the tall grass. A child, knees tucked to his chest, dirty, motionless. But he wasn't alone. He was surrounded. The clearing rippled with gray and shadow. Wolves, at least 5. A tight semicircle formed around the child. Some sat, one stood guard. Another pawed the ground near him gently, as if checking on his comfort. From above it looked surreal, unreal, a perfect still life of serenity, if it weren't for the fear creeping into every rescuer's throat. "He's surrounded," the ranger in the chopper whispered. "They're not attacking, but they're not leaving either." The child wasn't crying. He wasn't screaming. He just sat there, eyes wide, completely calm. He blinked slowly, as if he were sitting with friends. His small hands rested in his lap. And the wolves? They didn't bare their teeth. They didn't pace like predators. They behaved more like sentries. On the ground, rangers prepared for the worst. A perimeter was drawn, tranquilizer guns loaded. But even the most seasoned tracker, a man named Glenn, hesitated. He studied the still image on the drone tablet and furrowed his brow. "That's not a hunting posture," he said. "That's something else." Inside the clearing, the wind moved the grass gently, and the wolves stayed close. One placed her head across her paws, eyes never leaving the boy. The others did the same, ears alert but relaxed. Their positions weren't random, they were protective. And the child? He shifted slightly, leaning back against one of them, like it was a pillow. Silence fell over the rescue team. What were they seeing? This wasn't a standoff. This wasn't an attack. It was something none of them were trained for, something ancient, instinctive, and utterly impossible. From afar the image was haunting. A lone child, barefoot and dirt-smudged, surrounded by wolves in the dying light of day. Rangers lined the ridge, eyes fixed on the scene through scopes and lenses, hearts pounding behind their vests. Every survival instinct screamed danger. Every natural law said the boy was prey. But the wolves weren't behaving like predators. They weren't growling. They weren't circling with hunger. They were simply there, still, alert, quietly guarding the child like he belonged to them. Glenn lowered his binoculars slowly. "I've never seen anything like it," he muttered. "Not once in 30 years. One of the younger rangers shifted nervously. "What are we looking at? A den? A trap?" Glenn didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied the wolves' positioning again. One lay with her body curled in a crescent around the child's back, nose twitching every few seconds. Another paced a few yards away, checking the wind. The rest formed a wide perimeter, protective, deliberate, calm. "This isn't a hunt," Glenn finally said. "They've taken him in." The team fell silent. Helicopter blades thumped overhead, slowly backing off at Glenn's request. Too much noise, Too much movement. Any of it could trigger panic. One wrong step, and the pack might react. The boy could be caught in the middle. "We do this smart," he warned. "We don't go charging in with dart guns." The biologist on scene, Rachel, nodded. "Look at their posture. Heads low, ears back, no raised tails, no alpha dominance display." She zoomed in on her tablet. "And look at that one. Female, older, scar along her shoulder. She's the one licking his face." Everyone looked closer. The wolf wasn't just grooming the boy. She was checking him, nudging his skin, licking his cheeks, sniffing his hair. Not as prey, but almost like a nursemaid. Rachel's breath caught. "She's mothering him." Another ranger scoffed. "Come on, it's a kid, not a cub." Rachel didn't blink. "Tell her that." The sun dipped lower. The child moved slightly, reaching a tiny hand toward the wolf's chest. She didn't flinch. In fact, she leaned closer, pressing her warm body against his side as the air grew colder. And still, he didn't cry. Not once. Glenn radioed the search team. "Hold positions. I want night vision up and ready. No loud noises, no movements until we understand what's happening." Back in the clearing, a second wolf padded over and settled beside the boy's feet. He leaned forward, tiny fingers brushing its thick coat. No fear. Just trust. That was the moment it hit everyone at once. The boy wasn't just safe, he was accepted. Whatever primal logic ruled the pack, they had made a decision. And in the absence of his real family, they had become one. They were no longer keeping him hostage, they were keeping him alive. The stillness couldn't last forever. As night fell and the clearing grew darker, the temperature dropped. Rescue teams watched through thermal scopes and infrared drones. 5 glowing forms huddled around a smaller one, heat signatures pulsing gently, steady. No movement, no struggle, just warmth, unity. But time was running out. They couldn't leave the child there overnight. Every hour increased the risk of hypothermia, infection, or a change in the wolves' behavior. Glenn made the call. They'd move at first light, but only if they could find a way to separate the pack from the child without provoking them. That's when Rachel noticed something. "Wait," she said, pointing at her drone screen. "Zoom in on that one, the female." The camera sharpened. It was the same wolf who'd been pressed against the child, the one licking his face earlier. "There," Rachel whispered, voice tight. "Look at her underside." A subtle swelling, discolored patches on the fur, scarring near the haunches, and then one unmistakable detail: lactation. "She's nursing," Rachel said, stunned. Or was. The implications hit like a punch. This wolf hadn't just taken the boy in, she had lost something. Glenn stared at the screen. "Her pups?" he asked. Rachel nodded slowly. "Recently, by the looks of it. Maybe to a predator. Maybe to sickness. But she didn't lose the instinct. She redirected it." The boy had wandered into the woods, alone, cold, defenseless, and somewhere in the shadows a grieving mother had found him, not with teeth, not with violence, but with purpose. "She thinks he's hers," Rachel said. Glenn exhaled slowly, or maybe she just needed someone to protect. Back in the clearing, the drone captured the moment the child leaned forward and rested his face against the wolf's shoulder. The mother wolf didn't move. She didn't shake him off. She closed her eyes. A different kind of silence filled the ranger camp. Not tension, reverence. Then, movement. One of the younger wolves rose from the edge of the circle and took a few steps toward the tree line. It looked back, once, then disappeared into the brush. Another followed, and another. The pack was shifting. Only the mother remained. As the last wolf faded into the trees, she stood and turned to face the boy. Her ears flicked, her head tilted. And then she stepped away. The boy reached after her, fingers grasping the empty air. She paused at the edge of the clearing. For a full minute, she stood between forest and child, caught between two worlds. Then, with a single, silent glance back, she vanished. The boy sat alone now, blinking slowly, breath fogging the air, and still. He didn't cry. The pack had left, but the bond remained. The rescuers stepped from the shadows, slow and cautious. No howls, no snarls, just a soft wind in the grass and the sound of boots approaching gently. The boy turned to look, and for the first time since he vanished, he smiled. The wolves were gone, but no one dared rush in. The boy sat alone in the field, but the echoes of the pack lingered. The mother wolf had only disappeared moments before. She could return, and if they moved too fast, too loud, they might ruin everything. Glenn raised his hand to halt the approach. "Slow," he whispered, "one at a time." The team moved like shadows, silent boots in the grass, tranquilizers lowered, not raised. One medic unzipped a thermal blanket, another prepared fluids. Still, no one crossed the invisible line between them and the boy. He didn't run, he didn't flinch, he just watched them with wide, quiet eyes. Rachel moved first. She crouched low, arms out, voice soft as smoke. "Hey there, sweetheart. You okay?" The boy blinked once, slowly, then nodded. No sound, just a nod. Her throat tightened. Behind her the drone hovered silently. Then it caught a flicker. Movement in the tree line. The mother wolf. She hadn't left after all. She watched from a rocky ridge just beyond the clearing. Her eyes locked onto the child. Her ears twitched, nose quivering. She didn't move forward. She didn't growl. But her message was clear. Don't hurt him. Glenn whispered into the radio, "Visual on the she-wolf, North Ridge. Hold fire." Everyone froze. Rachel didn't. She stepped forward again, just 2 feet. The boy didn't back away. "Can I come closer?" she asked. He hesitated, then held out his hand. That single gesture broke the standoff. Rachel crossed the remaining distance, heart pounding. She wrapped the blanket around his shoulders and whispered, "You're safe now." The boy leaned into her without a word. He didn't tremble. He didn't cry. But he clung to her sleeve like it was the first solid thing he'd touched in days. Behind them, a low, mournful howl rose into the twilight. Everyone turned. The mother wolf stood silhouetted against the last orange glow of sunset, tail low, body still. Then she raised her head and let out one final piercing cry. A goodbye, a release. She didn't come back down. She didn't follow. She turned, slow and sure, and disappeared into the forest for the last time. Rachel's knees buckled under the weight of it all. Not the boy. He was light. But the moment, the meaning, the grief, folded into instinct. She let him go, Glenn said quietly. The team moved quickly now. The medic gave fluids, checked vitals, confirmed no injuries, just exhaustion, hunger, and exposure. The boy kept looking at the trees, searching for one last glimpse of fur between the pines. But the clearing was still. They carried him out by stretcher, though he didn't need it. He held Rachel's hand the entire way back. And in the distance, a new howl echoed across the valley. Software, low, lonesome. A mother's call, finally unanswered. The doctors said it was a miracle. No bruises, no broken bones, no bite marks. Just dehydration, mild hypothermia, and a few scratches from thorns. He should have been terrified. But Caleb, the 4-year-old who vanished into the Montana wild, wasn't afraid. He was peaceful. The hospital room was quiet. Soft beeping from the monitor. His parents held his hands, eyes still raw from sleepless nights. Reporters waited outside. Officials, too. Everyone wanted answers. But Caleb only said one thing. "They sang to me." His mother leaned closer. "Who, baby?" "The dogs. The big, soft dogs," he whispered. It broke her. Later, when psychologists tried to piece together his fragmented memories, he drew pictures, circles of fur. A moon song, he called it, a gray one with yellow eyes that kept him warm. "She gave me her belly," he told the nurse, tracing a shape on his blanket. "She let me sleep." His father asked gently, "Didn't you want to come home?" Caleb nodded. "But she said I was small, and she said I needed to go." Outside the hospital, the world reacted. The footage of the boy surrounded by wolves had gone viral. Millions watched it on loop. The stillness, the calm, the unexplainable peace in a scene that should have been a horror. Wildlife experts debated it for days. Some dismissed it as chance, a rare moment of non-aggression. Others saw something deeper: maternal displacement, instinct, grief, redirected into protection. But the public? They saw love. Letters poured in. Donations to conservation groups skyrocketed. Parents wrote about how the story changed the way they spoke to their kids about nature, not just as danger, but as something that listens. Back in Montana, a mural was painted on the ranger station wall. It showed a child in a field, a circle of wolves around him, not snarling, not stalking, but watching, guarding. Rachel visited often. She'd bring flowers to the edge of the clearing where they'd found him. Sometimes she left meat, though it was always gone by morning. Once she swore she heard a howl far off in the valley. Not close, just present. She never told anyone what she whispered the day she wrapped Caleb in that blanket. "Thank you." Months passed. The seasons changed. Caleb grew stronger, louder, full of laughter again. But once in a while, in the middle of a quiet night, he'd crawl from his bed and sit by the window. When his mother asked why, he always said the same thing: she might come back. The child forgotten by humans had been found by something wilder, and somehow protected. Sometimes protection doesn't come from the people we expect. It comes from instinct, from grief, from a bond so ancient we can barely understand it. This child survived not just the wilderness, but because something wild chose to shelter him. If this story moved you, leave a comment below. What do you think happened out there in that clearing? Was it instinct or something more? And if you believe in the power of nature, empathy, and true stories that touch the heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes the ones we fear most are the ones who protect us best.